this off like I do the Locked On Wolverines podcast. I forget what it is that I'm doing on a daily basis. Anyway, after a week off, we are back, hopefully in the morning. Got a new computer, which you can see the outline of here, so things should actually roll a lot more smoothly even in the coming weeks as I figure out some other logistics. Nonetheless, I wanted to talk a little bit about this week, or at least this morning, about not this week, because Northwestern's coming up this week. It's coming off of a win. It just beat Rutgers. It did so kind of similarly in a way, score-wise, to what Michigan did. But Michigan's obviously favored by 21.5. I want to talk a little bit about Michigan State, because I was feeling, and I'd watched a lot of Michigan State games this year, I was feeling like Michigan State certainly will knock off Michigan. And after reevaluating going into the weekend and then watching the game against Indiana, I know Michigan hasn't played Indiana, I've decided that I actually kind of feel like it's Michigan's game to lose. The biggest reason is because Michigan is handled, even though they're both undefeated. Michigan State 7-0, Michigan is 6-0. Michigan State's off this week. Michigan certainly should get its 7th win against Northwestern, barring something insane. I certainly feel like Michigan's been tested a little bit more than Michigan State. And I know I'm hanging my hat on some teams that don't have good records per se, but Michigan State has yet to play a team even with a winning record. I do want to preface, because I know I'm certainly going to get a lot of Michigan State fans that are upset at any of this. I'm not saying that this is a lock. I think Michigan has a slight edge right now. Very, very slight. It's incredibly slight. But Michigan's at least had a couple wins against teams with winning records, although they're not exactly who you would think. It's Western Michigan and Northern Illinois. So it isn't exactly a murderer's row in that sense. But Michigan has played Wisconsin, and Michigan's offense still looked really good against Wisconsin. Now, Michigan as a whole, as a team, they've played 12 halves of football. There has only been one half of football in which both sides of the ball looked inept, and that was obviously against Rutgers. That both sides, offense, and actually you could even say the defense actually wasn't that inept. It gave up 10 points. I mean, to any team giving up 10 points in half, you feel like pretty good, and they came up with a big stop, but certainly the defense didn't look as good in the second half against Rutgers as you would hope. And then obviously the offense looked really good against Nebraska pretty much all the way through the game. You'd like to see them finish more, settling for 4 field goals rather than touchdowns. That's an issue. But shorthanded and still managing to do a lot of what it was able to do. Good stuff as far as that's concerned. The defense was excellent in the first half and bad in the second half. So really, in a way, you had the offense having one bad half against Rutgers and the defense having one bad half against Nebraska. Otherwise, Michigan has pretty much dominated every other single half of football that it's played. Not just merely got through, but dominated. Even Wisconsin, I mean, it was dominant. Even though they gave up 10 points in the first half against Wisconsin, it really was one bad drive given up with a couple big NFL throws by Graham Mertz. Now, that said, Peyton Thorne certainly has that capability of making those NFL throws, and he's got those receivers, certainly, that can punish Michigan. That's why I'm not saying it's like a lock. Right now, if I was to pick the game, I'd probably pick Michigan by maybe a field goal, probably less than that. But I'm starting to look at these teams and realize that perhaps Michigan State hasn't been as tested as you'd think. Now, Michigan State's offense, they have the number 26 offense and number 85 defense in the country. That would make Michigan State's defense the second worst defense that Michigan will have played all year long. Outside of, well, it'll be third by the time that Michigan plays them, assuming that Northwestern holds true at 94. But Michigan State's got a 26 offense, and Michigan's got the 38th offense. But listen to who at the rank, the national rank in terms of total yards surrendered by some of these teams. Michigan State has played the 94 defense. Youngstown State doesn't count. They're not ranked. They're an FCS team. Miami of Florida, the U, 73rd. Nebraska is the second toughest defense they've faced. They both have faced Nebraska. Michigan's offense was able to move the ball against the Cornhuskers pretty regularly. Whereas, again, you don't want to get too much into transitive property, right? Because Michigan State did a great job against Rutgers all the way through. Michigan had one good half and one bad half. But Michigan was able to handle their offense or their defense pretty much all the way through. Nebraska's ranked 42. Western Kentucky, 122. Rutgers, 60. Indiana, 36. Against the good defenses, and this is where I start to really wonder, against those good defenses that Michigan State has played, the rushing attack hasn't been there. It's been non-existent. 71 rushing yards against Nebraska, 100 rushing yards against Indiana. Indiana. Rutgers, however, Michigan only had 112 yards against Rutgers. Again, that was off to the races in the first half. They stacked the box in the second. Michigan just kept on running into the stacked box. No creativity. Rutgers, they managed 249. That is Michigan State. The average defense played by each team, it's Michigan's in the upper third. MSU's in that halfway spot. There's 130 teams. MSU has played an average of the number 71 defense. Michigan has played an average of the number 43 ranked defense. Again, Western Michigan, they throttled that defense. The 28th in the country right now. Throttled them. Washington's 40th. Throttled them on the ground. Wisconsin, number 2. Now, obviously, Michigan only managed 112 yards against Wisconsin, and that certainly was surpassed, I think. Actually, let me check on this. I don't think it actually was surpassed by Army. It may have been. I don't remember now offhand, but it's I think that Michigan certainly has been a little bit more battle tested when it comes to the defenses it's played, and that's why the offense hasn't looked quite as game changing. Now, yes, Army certainly Army certainly surpassed Michigan with 179 yards rushing, 3.58 yards per carry. You expect that from the triple option, though, right? There's a lot of deception, but Michigan has the second best ability to run the ball on the nation's number 3 now rush defense. That went down after they played both Michigan. They were number 1. They went down to number 2, I believe, and now they're number 3 in the country in rush defense, allowing 64 yards per game. So again, it's not a shoo-in, but I wanted to explain my reasoning as to why I believe that Michigan has a better shot than I thought. Not that I didn't think they didn't have a good shot, but I certainly was looking at MSU perhaps paying way too much deference to the Spartans, which I tend to do a little bit with the rivals. And I think that this will certainly be a game. I just have more faith in Michigan's offense against the Michigan State's defense, and I also have faith in Michigan's defense to be able to contain the offense. Now, I didn't compile this at all, but obviously Michigan State has played some pretty good offenses to some degree, and I'll address that later. But Michigan's defense certainly managed against 41 Western Michigan. It had one good half against Nebraska, who's now number 15. Michigan State, like I said, is 26. Aside from that, it's not like any other teams that either has faced has been in that upper echelon, but Michigan State's defense did handle number 46 Miami, Florida. Michigan's defense, it didn't play as well against some of the, in that one game that they had against the top flight offense, number 15 Nebraska. So perhaps it's just an inverse, right? Maybe Michigan's defense looks awesome, partially because it's played bad offenses, and Michigan State's defense has gotten the job done against good offenses. They played number 4 Western Kentucky, but they gave up a lot of points. They still won the game, but they gave up a lot of points. So what I'm trying to say is nobody knows anything. I do still feel like Michigan should be able to beat Michigan State. I think it's got more talent. I think it's got more consistency. It hasn't played great, has not played great offenses, but it still has statistically one of the best defenses in the country. And guess what? None of it matters. What I say doesn't matter anyway. It's all going to be figured out in the next 6 weeks between Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State in week after this week, then the 2 weeks after that, and then 2 weeks after that. And as far as the college football playoff is concerned, some people complained about the AP poll, the coaches poll. None of that matters either. So anyway, that's going to do it for, I think, our longest morning drip so far. Hopefully it's out in the morning this time. See if this beast of an iMac Pro can help me out a little bit. But more importantly, I think I'm going to have some workarounds when it comes to being able to get this out a little bit sooner. I'd like to keep it on the morning of so that it's a little bit more immediate instead of doing a night show. But if it still ends up being an issue, then we'll start doing them at night and releasing them in the morning for everybody. But anyway, thank you for watching.